Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. So this is season 3, episode 22. It is the season finale. It is Zahadum. So full spoilers for the episode as per usual. And yeah, big things to talk about. And it's kind of neat that our last episode of the year is also their last episode of the in-universe year and season.
How about that?
Yeah, things have lined up rather bizarrely. On that subject, though, just before we go any further, just so that everyone knows this for next week, is that we will be taking a week off before we start season 4. There'll be 1 week off. It's not because we wanted a break between seasons, it's just nicely timed that way that it happens to be a really good place for a break. It's actually just because of Christmas and Christmas schedules. So there'll be a week off and then season 4 will be starting the following week. So you've been warned. But yes, season 3 finale. It is time. Anna is on the station. And yes, let me address right away. Yes, we did see Anna in season 2. There was footage of an actress playing Anna and a video message.
Forgot.
Yes, we forgot. It was really, I was frustrated though because the last 2 weeks ago's episode went out publicly and we got a bunch of comments about it, but we'd already recorded last week's episode where we talked about how we hadn't seen Anna before. Again,
we talked about it for 2 episodes, yeah.
And then I'm like, God, we're gonna get comments again. I'm gonna have to try and pin a comment on that episode. Just
More people need to be patrons so that they can tell us a week ahead of time.
Yes.
So we don't look like fools 2 weeks in a row.
So Anna's there. I thought the interactions between Anna, Sheridan, and Delenn were all very interesting in that first sequence. Mainly that Anna was a lot more openly antagonistic towards Delenn than I think I was expecting. I was expecting her to be playing it more coy, but she was like,
well, I mean, the Minbari and the Vorlons have history, and she's anti-Vorlon.
True, but that's not just what it is though. Like she immediately goes, I don't know what she's told you, John. I don't know what she's told you, that Delenn. Like she immediately starts saying things like that. So that kind of sets up our episode.
She doesn't seem too upset that John has moved on.
I guess maybe, I don't know.
I think she's just more upset that Delenn is just hanging out with Sheridan.
I felt like she tried to sort of play it off. She was reacting more like she was happy to see him and that this was normal. Then I wasn't, the way she kind of shows up and is like, oh, I'm happy to see you, and like, I don't know what she's told you, but it was almost like she was expecting to be welcomed back with open arms. And Sheridan, thankfully reacts with, I thought you were dead. Like, why are you here?
He doesn't want to touch her.
This is, well, he's right not to trust her, right?
Yeah.
And the entire episode, I'm like, I don't trust her. I don't trust her. I'm pretty sure Tara doesn't trust her. None of us trust her. This is all too sketchy. There's nothing about this that feels good. Doesn't feel kosher. And she tries to sort of play him against Delenn and play him against the alliance with Delenn and Kosh and the Vorlons, and it says, they've manipulated you, they've told you all these things, like, of course she didn't tell you I was alive, implying that Delenn knew. And Delenn doesn't know that. This is the thing. It does plant this seed so that Delenn and Sheridan have this sort of fight that they have later in the episode. And there is some truth that comes out in it, which is that, if she did have even a hint that Anna might still be alive, she might have had to hold back that. And she did, because keep in mind, she did hold back a lot of information for a long time until the time was right to let him in on it, right? That was like a big part of their journey. So,
like a fleet of 1,000 ships.
Yeah, like a fleet of 1,000 ships. And so there is some truth to that element, but it's all kind of based around this idea that she says quite rightly that, well, they were given a choice of like working for the shadows or death. We kind of just assumed that she was a decent person and get killed because she.
But there's always a chance that she wasn't. I mean, I suppose.
Yeah, and clearly that's the case, and he's got Franklin like doing scans and trying to check if it's really her. She's not some recreation. She's not some, like, I don't know, guest from Solaris or whatever.
It is interesting that we just watched that film.
Yes, but like so. You've got this playing out, and there is kind of like a frustrating, in a good way. I'm not saying this is a fault of the episode. I'm saying that there's a kind of a frustrating, like, you want him to make the right choice. You want him to like do things correctly. You want him not to be tricked. And and I'm glad that like eventually we see like he has like a moment where he sees Kosh saying, if you go to Zahadum, you will die. And
was that Kosh or the other Vorlon speaking as Kosh?
No, I thought this was more Kosh, like in his memory, kind of like the part of him that was still lingering there was sort of coming out. And then we have, of course, the fact that he went to the future and he had these warnings, even from Delenn, not to go to Zahadum. And I thought his logic later on, because obviously it turns out that he is aware that she's different, that Anna is different. He's not trusting her. He's going with a plan, because conveniently early in the episode, it's established that Jakar has got them a bunch of nukes. And he's taken a couple, but he's left a message for Delenn that explains some of this. And he says that he loves her, right? And she said she loved him earlier in the episode. And I'm sure you were like in great tension the entire time when they were fighting, and it felt like the relationship was falling apart.
Oh yeah,
edge of your seat.
They're not going to ruin this.
Like, you trust them now? They gave me what I wanted, therefore I now trust them.
I don't suspect they would.
Yeah, I mean, no, I definitely felt like he's going to make the right choice at some point, and so he's doing this big thing. But his logic here is what I thought was interesting. His logic is, you told me in the future not to go to Zahadum, but what if the reason why everything happens is because I listened to you and I didn't go to Zahadum? What if I need to go to Zahadum? I'm like, this is like some 4D chess thinking you've got going, Sheridan.
What if I know that you know that I was going to say that, and so you said this, and
I mean,
that whole back and forth. You say 4D chess, I say Princess Bride, Poison Cup.
I feel like he's just playing into destiny, as it were, and that things are happening like they always have done, and he's just made the same choice that he always did. At least until this point. I don't think he's changed anything yet.
Maybe. I mean, he may have put the Centauri on a different path now that the shadows might be wiped out, or at least crippled, and are leaving the station alone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're wiped out. I mean, certainly all those ships are still there. They all still exist.
Yeah, the ships retreat. They don't die. But, I mean, that planet seemed to have been pretty important to them.
Well, I don't think the whole planet's dead. I think just like their main base, where those people were staying and stuff, is obviously
Maybe
gone.
They need to go away for another 1,000 years to rebuild.
Yeah, I don't think he's changed anything yet, and I feel like Kosh's warning, if you go to Zahadum, you will die. Like, because we know, like, we're not losing Sheridan, like, he is going to be around. I suspect.
Yeah, I assume so.
I suspect that you will die was kind of a technicality. Like, maybe he's resuscitated and brought back, a la the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or something. Like, maybe, like, in a way he is kind of reborn in whatever happens next. So I could see, like, technically he was right. He did die, but that's not the end of Sheridan's story. That's kind of like how I'm kind of looking at this.
Maybe he'll have to be cocooned for a little while, for a couple episodes. Come back half Minbari.
I don't think that's happening. But
he does fall into the brown zone of this planet, and we don't see him die technically.
No, and it's important as well that he hears like a Kosh voice in his head saying "jump now."
Yeah, was it Kosh? I wasn't quite sure.
I mean, we don't know.
It was Kosh's voice, or it could have been, I guess, the planet. What's his name on the planet?
Oh, Dral. Yeah. It sounded like a Vorlon to me. I mean, it might not be Kosh, because this sounds less like a memory, this line, and more like a live transmission.
Yeah, like jump now.
But then again, maybe we'll find out that Kosh is, like, I don't know, like, part of Kosh is still in him, right?
Ooh, Katra.
And we kind of already know that part of Kosh is in him, so maybe it is actually still just like a live kind of like thought from Kosh. He's part of his brain, which is like, no, jump now. And yeah, maybe wherever he's jumping is somehow going to lead to safety, even though it looked like a really long, very, very long fall.
Yes. from the Bridge of Khazad-dûm
but we don't know what's down there. Stop referencing
to
Lord
fight
of
a
the Rings.
Balrog.
Stop referencing Lord of the Rings. I will not entertain it. I'm not doing it. Nope. Absolute trash.
How dare you on the 20th anniversary of all times?
Absolute trash. So no, I think this all these decisions that Sheridan has to make in this episode are pretty interesting, and they're again, it's kind of like this idea of like, this is why he has to be the guy. This is why he has to be the one making these choices. Because ultimately the Shadow's plan in this episode is to have Anna bring him here and convince him to drop the resistance and be like, hey, our whole goal, because we're interested in your character named Justin, right? Morden's there as well, which was really cool. Just like walking into the room and Morden's just there. What?
This show has been guilty of this before, but hearing like modern young people names in the future, but they're older people, just doesn't sit right with me.
But that makes sense though, because they're...
I know, but like I immediately giggle like, your name's Justin? I don't know. I mean, I understand.
The Justins of the world are all going to grow old, Tara. You have to accept this.
I know. I just can't. Wasn't there like a Kevin or something in an earlier season also? This old man named Kevin.
Again, Kevins are going to grow old. This is such a weird nitpick.
I know.
I'm sorry he's not named like Richard or Jebediah or something.
That I could accept.
But yeah, he comes in and they make this sales pitch to him, which is that the Shadow's whole thing is that, so all of the ancient races kind of like left this like giant sector of space, but two remained, the Vorlons and what they call the Shadows. And the Shadows' whole idea is that for evolution to happen, for races to get stronger, is that every so often they have to fight, and the strongest have to survive. And then they're stronger because they survived. They're stronger because they went through these wars. And that's their whole point.
Kind of like innovation through necessity.
Yeah. And I suspect there's still maybe a little bit more to it, but like this kind of does track to some extent and makes some sense. And ultimately, what they ask Sheridan to do is to stop, like, you know, because Sheridan's whole thing is he's actually bringing all of these different races together. They're all aligning under him, and that's thrown a wrench in their whole plan. Like, it's stopping the wars from happening. Which I think this is maybe the first time that we've had kind of something definitive said along the lines of, their goal is not just to destroy everyone, their goal is to make all of the current civilizations fight each other. So the idea that just by avoiding that, by all of them aligning against the Shadows, they're already kind of stopping the Shadows from achieving what they're supposed to be doing. Like, their goal is already being thwarted by what they're doing. Even though they don't understand what the goal was, and they thought they were getting ready to fight this war with the Shadows, which might in some capacity still happen, especially after this episode. Maybe there'll be like a retaliation of some kind. But the idea that, no, the goal was just to make everyone fight, and just purely by aligning and showing that we can be together, that we are not all savage, we can like trust each other, all the good things of like humanity and like living species, all of that is what's winning. And
sure.
Yeah, so I think that's quite interesting as a concept.
Yeah, it plus they talk about how the Vorlons are not necessarily innocent of this either. They've been manipulating species also, just maybe in a way that you don't agree with.
Well, to be fair, we have talked about that a little bit when they've brought these things up throughout the show.
And yeah, they bring up they just take people that they want to bring them into the future, and there's a reason why when you look at them you see an angel, and it does very much seem like these ancient species in the universe that have stayed behind are just sort of playing one big game of Risk with the leftover developing cultures and civilizations, and are doing whatever is the best strategy for their side to win. Like, this is just a big game to them, and we're all just kind of pawns in it. So it's more like it's not necessarily a good versus evil anymore. Now it's more of a, like, okay, so the gods are just playing with us.
Potentially. Like, I do think that maybe part of this is going to be that, yeah, the Vorlons aren't perfect, and they've done things that we're going to disagree with, and they've done things that seem manipulative and is manipulative, but like maybe it's the idea that they're still the better of the two options. Like ultimately, what they're like, what they believe, like they're doing it in what they think is their best interest.
Their version costs less lives.
I mean, yeah, if you want to boil it down to that, yeah. But like, just the idea that what they're doing, while does have some problems, does have like necessary evils, or does have some cold elements to it, does have like but no one's perfect. And the idea is that maybe part of what the main characters on the show are going to have to choose at some point is like becoming independently thinking, separate from the Vorlons, and choosing their own path, because ultimately at a certain point the training wheels have to come off, and we can't just follow the ancient race that's like giving us all these pointers. But you can also look at it like maybe the Vorlons are trying to like atone for their past mistakes, and they're trying to help like the younger civilizations get to a point where they can be kind of what we tried to be in our time but couldn't. So that they are they're sort of guiding us as a failed parent who, or not a failed parent, but a failed person who's trying to be a better parent than they were a person, right? So they're trying to like, no, we're going to try and make you better than we were by just putting the pieces in place to make it happen.
I guess I see it more now, less of the like God versus devil or angels versus demons, and more of like the ancient Greek gods or something, you know, where they're all just this spectrum of we're just better than them, and we're only powerful because they worship us. So it's just whoever can get the most worship, and instead that gives them power. I don't know. It's just how I'm seeing it now, instead of the whole God versus devil.
I mean, I never really looked at it
before.
I never looked at it as God versus devil anyway, and I don't really like the whole.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of imagery of that.
Oh, just sure. No, I mean, there's definitely been imagery, but like I've never really thought of the sides like that, and I don't think of it necessarily as a worship thing. Either that may be part of it. I'm kind of more thinking of the shadows and the Vorlons now as just in a much more simpler term, because I hate thinking of things being that big, because it's just like there's a certain point where it's unwieldy, and I can't relate to any of it. The way I mean,
good versus evil you can relate to.
Sure, but let me finish what I'm saying here. The way I'm seeing them though is more like at one time they were just another version of us, and all this really is two ideologies, and they're still kind of battling it out for today, and it fits into the themes of the show, because everyone else in the show, every group in the show, are all in this like political game. They're all trying to, you know, look at the Narn and the Centauri, look at the way that humans and the Minbari have been. Like, I kind of like the idea that these two ancient races are just a much older version of this. It's just two sides of a very old conflict, which is obviously influencing a lot of what's going on with all the younger races now. And maybe these two races are in the wrong for staying back and like manipulating and getting involved in anything. Maybe the other ancient races who like moved on to better pastures, maybe they kind of like resent or like look down on these two races for sticking around. Maybe they didn't feel like they should have stuck around. Like that's just an interesting thought to think about. But so
yeah, maybe.
Because I wonder if like the idea of them sticking around and wanting to get involved in all of this, is that them being almost a little immature and not wanting to move on to wherever everyone else went, and clinging to like the old conflicts in a way that like is unhealthy. I don't know. I was just it's sort of like the way I'm kind of thinking about it. But I certainly. Like, obviously they're very advanced, the Shadows, the Vorlons are very advanced, but I definitely like to still think of them as just more advanced races rather than kind of, I don't know, like biblical figures or anything like that.
Okay, I mean, I just mean more like, yeah, they're more advanced where they would seem like gods to us. Oh,
sure, yeah, the old attitude that, you know, science just looks like magic until you understand it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of big stuff, a lot of big themes kind of like
opened up. We also find out
episode.
that the only reason that humans have telepaths is because of this manipulation.
Yeah, the Vorlons. That's why 100 years ago, give or take, suddenly humans had telepaths, and not just humans either. Other races. I mean, not necessarily 100 years ago. Humans were 100 years ago. Because of what happened with the Narn, they must have been much earlier. But yes, the idea that Vorlons are intentionally making telepaths in all these various races so that they can fight the shadows someday. Which, given that it turned out that that was kind of their weakness, was telepaths, does make some sense. So it's interesting, and yeah, there's the morals of that. Like, is that the morals of that? Like
Morality.
Yes, thank you. The morality is that something that we should feel like, I don't know, invaded by? Like, you know, the Vorlons.
I mean, it's not like there's been zero consequences for it.
In many ways, the Vorlons did the traditional beam someone up and probe them until they became a telepath and sent them back down. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm being crude the way I'm describing it.
Some poor guy in a cornfield.
But that's effectively what sounds like has happened. They just, we get some humans and we'll experiment on them to make them telepaths and send them back down.
Yeah, or some sort of genetic manipulation.
But anyway, all this stuff is coming out as they're kind of giving him this ultimatum to like join up, and if he doesn't, then they're going to like destroy Babylon 5. We see all the shadow ships appear around the station. I particularly like, as it's cutting back and forth, you know, of course we know Sheridan's like brought in an extra gun that he can sneak out and like defend himself with. I kind of like that when we come back to him after he's like taking some shots. There's a great moment where the fake Anna, because at this point they've confirmed, like, he's called her out that she's not really her. Like, yeah, it's her body technically, but it's not her. It's not the woman that he actually married or anything like that. There's a great moment where he's at that ledge before he jumps, and she's walking towards him, and there's like two of the shadow creatures like walking behind her as she's like slyly walking towards him, and it's so intimidating. It's probably one of the most effective effect shots they've ever done in this show, because it was just a genuinely good visual. Because I enjoy a lot of the effects, but they are very obviously video game looking, so it's just kind of like you enjoy it in a kind of a like let's get some charm, you know.
Yeah, they're not alone anymore. Yeah.
Because
I thought the Justin guy was a little pointy with his acting. He used his hands and pointed a lot.
That's all right. I use my hands a lot when I'm talking. I stand by Justin. Old man Justin.
No, old man Justin's really pointy.
It's okay to be old, name Justin, and point a lot, okay? I stand with Justin.
I don't. I don't agree.
I tell you who I don't stand with. The guy who comes to Londo to give him a message. That actor who was there for like 30 seconds was terrible.
I mean, he was fine. He was doing his best Morden.
That's the thing, though. It felt like he was doing a bad impression of Morden. With his like,
well, he's wearing like the same suit and stuff, and he didn't have the slick back hair, which would have made the real difference.
But I like how Londo and Veer just immediately go, I guess that's one of Morden's friends then. He's like, yep, probably.
Yeah, they're like the agents in Matrix, where they all kind of have a similar vibe.
Yeah, I dug that. You know, so we see Londo, we find out that he's been given this promotion, but he knows this is just to keep him on a tighter leash because they're scared of him, because the Emperor thinks he might act against him at some point. And let's face it, he's probably right. Knowing Londo at this point.
He's getting close to the Emperor's chair, though.
Yeah. And we see a bit of Jakar. I do love the... So Bridge Boy's like in this episode, and I feel like we've not seen him too much recently.
I don't think we have.
So I kind of like that there's a scene where he's standing next to Jakar, and like Jakar asks a question and he answers it, and I'm like, Bridge Boy's got a scene with Jakar. He's like moving up in the world.
We didn't get any Zach Allen or Cole in this episode, which is, notable for the, season ender.
Yeah, it's almost Cole just doesn't fit into the plot, I guess, which is it's kind of strange. You'd think at least there'd be a scene where he comes to like yell, "Oh, the ships are here!"
Yeah, starts whacking sticks or something.
Whacking sticks. That's what we're calling his combat style.
Stick whacking.
Whacking sticks sounds like some sort of weird, like new version of Grinder. All right, that like whacking sticks.
Well, I guess it would be a very specific type of grinder.
Yeah. What do you mean? Grinder's already gay, only.
Yeah, but whacking sticks, I guess, assumes that you have a stick to whack.
Oh, okay. So
Grinder's more inclusive.
Oh, I thought Grinder was just men. Oh, is Grinder all of the LGBT spectrum?
I don't know. I just assumed it was.
I don't know. All of the jokes I've ever heard about it have always been aimed at men, so I just assumed it was a male.
That's because people feel like it's okay to make fun of that when it's not.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Wait, are you giving me shit for making a Grinder joke now?
No.
Okay. Just checking. So, yeah. All the stuff in the station, Garibaldi. There's this interesting scene with him just before Sheridan leaves where he's kind of shocked at what Sheridan's asking of him. And obviously we find out later what he's asked is like, hey, prep a ship, put 2 nukes out of the White Star for me. Like, get this ready to go. And Garibaldi's like, you sure you want me to do this? And Sheridan's like, yes, you know what, we've come to trust each other, Michael.
So do we think that Garibaldi has saved Sheridan or that they're separate? They're on separate adventures.
Wait, what? What are we talking about?
Well, because we hear the voice of something like Kosh saying, jump now. And we assume that, Sheridan's going to be saved by wherever he lands. Like maybe Garibaldi has because you took a pod also, right? A shuttle or whatever.
Yeah, but we see that traveling. He's attached to one of the shadow ships that left, but this is after Sheridan's already jumped.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I'm confused by what you're saying.
I don't recall seeing that, so I guess he is on a separate journey then.
Yeah, because he's with all the other pilots at the station, and it's when the shadow ships are leaving. He has a moment where he looks up, and then when we see the shadow ship in the hyperspace, it turns around and we see the little his little ship is like attached to it. So he's on his way. So it's definitely clear that starting next season, like Garibaldi's somehow going to be the one who brings Sheridan home. It's just a case of like, how did Sheridan survive? If he survived, is there a technicality here? Is it some sort of resurrection?
Well, it turns out inside the shadow planet of Casa Doom is just full of pudding. So he just had a nice, soft, delicious landing.
Zahadum.
Sure.
Well, I need to get away with it. I'm not having it.
Come on, you brought up Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that had zero relevance to this show.
I referenced it briefly. You're dropping Lord of the Rings words and things left and right and hoping I don't notice.
It's JMS's fault, not mine.
You can show some restraint.
Can I though? When you love something,
you can show some. You can show some restraint. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so Garibaldi is potentially off to save because Sheridan's, the White Star comes in with the nukes and blows up.
Yeah, he's got no ride.
Yeah, his ride's gone at the very least. Also, fake Anna screaming right before the explosion.
I mean, you say
nice.
Fake Anna, but it is still technically Anna. She's just been, brainwashed and manipulated.
Okay, sure. You know what I mean, though.
He does technically kill his wife. He really loves Delenn.
He's really. He even talks about building a future with Delenn at one point in this episode. Yeah.
Well, she gave him a fleet of 1,000 White Stars. He gives her a dead wife. There you go. Oh, yeah, clean slate.
Wait, so you think when he comes back aboard the station next season somehow, the first thing he's going to say to Delenn is like,
"Guess what I did for you?
Don't worry, Christmas. Don't worry, Delenn. Anna's out of the picture."
It's pretty cold. There's no way to bring her back.
I mean, I guess it is worth mentioning that it does sound like she did resist. She didn't choose to work with the shadows. It sounds like she did resist, but then they did something to her instead.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, actually, not. Maybe not, because they say that she was changed because they put her in one of the ships. She was the pilot of one of the ships, and that changed her over time. So. Maybe people can confirm in the comments. Did she resist at first, or did she accept it first, but then changed anyway because of the pilot and stuff with the ship?
I would assume that she had, psychic potential, so they're like, well, we still want to use her for our ships, and that changed her.
People in the comments can clear that up because.
I'm sure they want to keep her like somewhat noble since, you know, Sheridan was with her for so long.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing though if they did convince her, if they did somehow tempt her to the dark side. But yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense from a narrative perspective for the character of Sheridan if his wife was actually as good and noble as he thought she was, but then they did something to her to change her.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like darker that he wouldn't, you know, try to save her. Instead, let her get nuked. Didn't grab her before he jumped, you know.
Yeah, but he does make it clear though that this is not the woman he married, that she's not really in there anymore. This is someone else in her head. So yeah, they clearly define all that before he lets her die.
Maybe he should have watched Solaris before he made this decision.
Well, to be fair, he was also going, like, he was willing to die, right? It's only because the voice told him to jump that he has some chance of surviving. He thought this was a suicide mission. He thought, and that's why he leaves a message for Delenn and why he confesses everything, because he thinks this is a goodbye.
I know. He says, "I love you."
So, yeah, she's really upset. Lanier's there trying to help her by the end. Jakar has a little bit of narration at the end. Isn't it nice that when we come back and the year will have changed in the show?
Yeah. Well, he says the year in the narration. I actually was thinking, I wonder if this is a little hint that... yeah, I know. But I was wondering if this was a little hint that maybe Jakar will be doing the opening narration for the next season, because I guess technically we had different narrators each season.
Yeah. I think someone said in a comment ages ago that it was supposed to be someone different each season, but because season 2 they changed the captain, it just kind of felt like, oh, just because he's the captain now he's doing it, rather than because they've changed.
I don't recall that comment, but I don't doubt that it is there. But yeah, when he said the year, I was like, oh, is he going to be the narrator next time?
Well, I'm trying to remember back at the end of season 2, did Devonova narrate the ending to lead into her doing the intro and the following season? I
mean, it wouldn't have happened with Sheridan, but for understandable reasons. But
interesting. I was just going to say, it's just nice that the year will have changed. At the start of this review, when I say the year it'll change for us too.
Yeah. That will be consistent. We'll be done with the series by the time we get to the end of this year.
By 2022. Yeah. I was going to say, that's a very eventful final week you've got planned for us. we got just under 2 weeks left of the year.
Now.
Yeah. That's a lot of record. That's us watching and recording like 2 episodes a day.
Oh boy.
Yeah, not doing that. Can't fit that in. I got a Christmas top 10 to finish up before Christmas. I'm on a deadline here, people. Which will be up by the time you get this review, so go check it out.
Where is Lethal Weapon on the list?
I'm not revealing anything.
What about Die Hard?
I'm not revealing anything.
Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2?
I'm not revealing anything.
Christmas Evil.
Which part of I'm not revealing anything is hard to process?
Maybe I'm just making my own list, all right?
Okay.
Home Alone.
Not revealing anything.
Gremlins.
Okay, so yes, is there anything else on the station, other characters that we need to discuss subplots of? I don't think there is, actually.
I mean, I don't think so. Jakar got a moment, Lanier got a moment. Those are probably, and Bridge Boy, those are probably the most obscure.
Yeah.
Franklin had a little moment.
Yeah, Franklin's was mainly, figuring out the wife stuff and
This is the first time he's back as doctor, though.
Yeah. He still got his walking stick though, so he's still, working injured from before, which is, nice bit of continuity.
Injured, but sober.
Yes. So, yeah. I mean, it's a really good finale. It has some big stuff in it. It feels like it pays off. A lot of the mystery we've had this past couple of seasons, but obviously still leaving a lot to be told, because we still have all of this future that we're going to get to, or avoid perhaps by the end, depending on what they do with it. We still have to work through a lot of that. There's a lot of stories still left here, and the shadows are not defeated. Like they still exist. This is obviously a big blow to them, and something that's probably going to make them despise the name that is John Sheridan. I do love this trend with his character though, because obviously his big thing when he first showed up was that he was the one man who like destroyed a Minbari ship, and now he's the one man who like bombed an entire shadow city. Like, you know, he keeps making a name for himself with every race that he encounters that's hostile towards humans. It's
yeah, it's interesting. I guess they've kind of made their mark on the shadows for like when you think of Godzilla like walking around Japan, he doesn't really care about the people. Like they're just ants to him. But all of a sudden the ants have this oxygen bomb, and all of a sudden he's got to pay attention. It's kind of like that. The ants of the universe have made their mark on the shadows.
I'm only like 60% with you, I think, on that analogy, but I'll let it slide.
Because it's Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like the idea that, just to go back to like the Shadows' whole like game plan and what their goal is, at least what they're telling us their goal is. I mean, there could be more to it that we learn in time, but at least right now, what they've told us is that it does just kind of play into the themes of the show, which is a very political thing. Is like for some political parties or some like groups in the world, it is to their benefit that other groups are fighting for their own goals. So I do like that ultimately what the Shadows are doing is just more political bullshit, in the same way that Londo's been playing political games with other people, and the same way that other characters do it. It's just that on a bigger scale. So
yeah, it's people trying to justify genocide.
Yeah. So I like that these themes are all so tightly woven together, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So good, pretty good season, pretty good show.
Pretty good, pretty
good episode. Good show. Yeah. I am excited about where we're going to go in season 4. I'm actually like I don't feel like I know exactly what we're going to do in season 4, and that's quite exciting, I think. So, other than
I don't know either.
Sheridan walking in and Delenn being like, "Oh my god." John.
I suspect Londo will become emperor, unless that timeline's been totally nil because of Sheridan's, decision to go to Casa Doom.
Yeah, I don't expect it has, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, exciting stuff. Yeah, I guess just ready to wrap up. So that's been the season 3 finale of Babylon 5.
Loved that we finally got some making out on the show. And Cole wasn't there.
The making out wasn't this episode, though.
No, I just mean for the season.
Oh, sure, yeah. There's a season recap. This was the season that built up to their loving embrace, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And why for about 19 episodes you kept saying they haven't kissed yet? Why don't they have babies? This is nonsense.
It's a very satisfying season.
Yes. So by all means, let us know what you think of the season 3 finale in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at @mail_fuzz for channel updates, and of course you can support us over in Patreon, can't they, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mildfuzztv. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you'll get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 1 week early. Well, 6 days early. And you get to vote on some things. Although patrons, you'll get it a week later because we're taking a week off. So if you can't stand being a week without us, become a patron for a little bit and you'll be able to see us next week. Right?
Yeah, although patrons still have to miss a week, though. They just miss a week earlier.
Yeah, but if you're not a patron and you're watching this episode, then you can see it next week.
True. Technically speaking, if you become a patron after this one goes public, you will effectively avoid the week off.
That's what I mean.
Yes. Again, there's some 4-dimensional thinking on to make this work. But
well,
yes.
I'm very clever.
But yes, technically speaking, if you're not a patron, then become a patron at the exact right time. You'll kind of take away the week off.
Yes.
I guess.
Well, that's what we do these plugs for. Every week is for the people who aren't, patrons yet.
True. The patrons we're just already thanking. Thank you, patrons.
Thank you.
You're great.
We enjoyed all your early comments. Keep them coming.
May you live long and profit. So,
Peace and long life.
so yes, thank you very much once again for watching or listening. Much appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.